Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hang Out with Coach Kerry. In fact, this is episode 56, and this is a viewer's Q&A call. So what's a viewer's Q&A call? Well, over the period of really putting on these episodes, I get feedback and questions from viewers just like you who have specific questions that they want me to answer that may not have been dealt with in a particular episode, but might have been, but it might be buried within somewhere in that episode. So we bring it back and we talk about it. So I love these days because it's it's whatever you need, I'm here to provide for you. And if you haven't been following me, and this is one of your first episodes, my name's Kerry Brown, and I'm a veteran in the coaching industry. I've been coaching now for over 18 years, so I was one of the early pioneers. And I bring a unique viewpoint onto the coaching that I do, because primarily I work with small business owners, entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, and I originally, though, my training was in personal and life coaching, because at the time that was really all the training that there was. Then a number of years ago, I found that I was attracting people who were in business, not people who were necessarily in transition with their life or looking for, improvements in terms of weight loss or, other sorts of things, really finding their purpose in life. What they wanted to know was the practical pieces on how to actually have a successful business. So I became certified as a licensed professional business coach, and I now have an advanced certification through that program. And then in addition to that, I have an executive coaching certification, which is really all in the leadership piece. So I have this really unique combination of training that I think brings a really practical bottom line strategy approach to the coaching that I offer. So today, again, this is our Q&A call today. And so today we're going to get some questions. And today I'm honored to have one of my long-term VIP panelists on with me today to ask me the questions from you, our audience. And her name is Kathy Scott. So Kathy, introduce yourself and tell our audience what it is you do.
Thanks, Kerry. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Kathy Scott. I have a business called Niche Travel, and we specialize in women's tours all over the world. They're spectacular boutique, small group tours for women, having adventures with kind of like being on a tour with girlfriends on a bus. It's a lot of fun. So that's what I do.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to our questions today, and I'm looking forward to my next Niche Women's Tours. I've been on 2 of them so far and absolutely love them. Just delightful. So, okay, so let's get on to our questions. Today, what I want to do is be able to give you practical tips and strategies, so much so that you're going to want to have a pen and paper handy. You're going to maybe go back and watch this episode over again. And please do comment. Please do comment when you're watching this episode, if you want. If you're watching it from Facebook feed, comment right there. Also, if you're watching this on my website, which as you can see below, it's HangOutWithCoachKerry.com. For those of you who are listening to this on audio, Kerry is spelled Kerry. And you can watch it on my page there. I've got all of the videos that are there and lots of other things. So Kathy, let's get on to our first question. What's your first question for me today?
Okay, Kerry. Well, I've got a list of questions that came in from some of the viewers, which is wonderful. So the first one is one of the ladies asked, when trying to figure out what your ideal client is in your business, what would you ask? What kind of questions would I ask myself?
That's great, because often we think that we know who our client is or ideal client is, but sometimes we are not attracting them. So what is that about? So there's a couple of really good questions, and I think the first one is, this is where you can use what's called in law of attraction the clarity through contrast process, which is, what don't you want, and then you can help flip it and what do you want. So in this situation, what we're going to do is take a look at what clients don't you want. What are their behaviors? What are their attitudes? How do they deal with you? So this is clients or customers. And you want to really look at maybe some of the clients that you currently have right now. Would you, if you pick them, would you call them your ideal client? And if the answer is no, then you want to actually flush out what are the reasons why. What is it about that client that makes them not an ideal client? And then flip that and say, okay, well then what would be the opposite to that? So for an example, for me, an ideal client for me is someone who comes to coaching willing and open to direction, to seeking answers within themselves, but also asking questions, really coming with an attitude that is, I know very little and I want to know more. Because when a client comes to me who has the impression, or gives me the impression that they know it all, really coaching can't happen in that environment. And so for me, I'm really clear that an ideal client for me is one who's laid down their ego, is prepared to say, in order for me to grow, I have to get out of my own way and be open to hearing and having discussions and moving forward in my business, challenging some of those perspectives I have. So I have had in the past clients that were not ideal. And so using this clarity through contrast process for me allowed me to be able to identify who is my ideal client. And then I can ask myself, okay, what is it about that ideal client that I calls them my ideal client? Well, it probably is their attitude to whatever your product or service is. It may be the ease of which you do business with them. Their openness in terms of me, I talked about their openness to be coached. That you really want to flush out that ideal client. And maybe you might even have one of those right now that you're working with, or you have in the past, and they become your avatar, so to speak, for your business. They're the one that you're really clear, if I could have my business made up of just duplicates of this person, that would be great. One of the other pieces you want to ask yourself is, are they actually out searching? So often I've had clients who are struggling with their business, and they tell me who their ideal client is, and it's someone that is not out looking for their particular product or service. And actually, that's a great market to go after because there's no other competition in it. However, you have to have a way to get their attention. And often I will recommend people use what's called education-based marketing, which is really teaching those people, making them aware that they have a problem that needs solving that they didn't know that they actually had. So you're educating them about that. Because if you are the one that's educated them on the problem that they have, then they're going to look to you before anyone else for the solution. However, if in your business model or the way you are set up right now, that's an avenue that you don't want to go after, and there's people who are not looking for what you have, then you have to find out who actually is looking for what I offer. And so that is a piece. So they're looking. They have to have the ability to buy. In other words, they have to have the ability to pay for your services. Too often I hear people say this is their client, but then when we actually do some research and we look at it, those people actually don't have the financial ability to be able to buy what it is they offer. So then that isn't an ideal client, of course. So then we want to look at, what do they want? What do they want, that ideal client? And is there a match for what you offer? And ideally, if you have determined that is your ideal client, there should be a really, really close match with that. So lots of questions to be asking yourself. You want that avatar, that ideal client. You can picture them. It may be an existing or past client that you can kind of identify that's exactly what they're like. You know what drives them. You know their motivations. You know how they act, what their behaviors are, all of those kinds of things. And of course, why is this important? Well, all of your marketing and everything hereafter is going to be dependent upon who you've identified as your ideal client. So you really want to ask yourself those questions and go deep with those. Stay away from those what I would consider to be self-evident. Well, of course, that's who my client is. I want you to go deeper, and if you may actually have a couple of different clients in that, so that's okay. But be really clear who they are, what differentiates them, and all of those pieces. Was that, Kathy? Do you think I answered that question for that listener for you?
Oh, I think so, and then some. It's great, Kerry.
Great, excellent. Okay, what's my next question?
Well, one of the other questions that I thought was a really good one actually was, I know in the past you've talked a lot about what business that a person's in is not necessarily what they think they're in. So one of the questions from one of the viewers was, what kinds of questions do I ask myself to decide what business am I actually in?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because again, far too often people say that they're in a particular industry or the name of their profession. And in fact, that isn't what they're in. They're actually in the business, most people, of solving problems for that ideal client. That's really what business they're in. So you want to ask yourself, if you've identified who your ideal client is, you've done that exercise, then you want to ask yourself, what are the problems they have? What maybe keeps them awake at night? What causes them lack of sleep? What causes them stress, frustration, struggles? And that is, and do you provide a solution for what their problems are? And versus a generic solution, but specifically, do you provide a solution for them? And if the answer is yes to that, then you have found what business you're in. So I would say most of us are in the business of problem solving. But we don't, if someone asks us, well, what do you do? We don't want to say, well, I'm in the business of problem solving, because that could be a rather intriguing question and maybe lead to some more answers or some more questions. You don't want to be too flippant that you're not going to get any questions. So you really want to think about, what problems do you solve? So for an example, for me, myself, I help solve these problems. The challenge of not having enough marketing strategies in place that get enough people coming in the door. That when you get enough people coming in the door, or phoning, emailing, whatever that happens to be, that the people who actually buy your product or service is not at the highest ratio you'd like it to be. So I help them with strategies on how to convert those people more to paying clients and customers. Challenges in terms of customer service that they might have. So for an example, they've done great work with people, yet they really haven't kept in touch with those people. And there's gold, there's, those are pearls. Those are people who have liked the work that you've done. So what strategies to keep them in place? So lots of strategies around that. Challenges with hiring either outsourced professionals, that's virtual assistants or people to do certain work for you, or direct employees. I help people with that, because that can cause them a huge headache. It can cost them a lot of money to their bottom line if you train someone and it doesn't turn out. So those are just some examples of some of the things. So it manifests itself by my clients, again, laying awake at sleep, really awake at night, thinking, what am I doing? How am I going to make money at this? Should I get a real job? What are my options that are out there? I mean, those kinds of frustrations. And I say those really in the language that I know my clients are thinking, not some marketing language that I provide solutions for, blah, 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 blah. But I want to identify what it is that their problems are. So what business am I in? I can answer that pretty quickly and pretty clearly by the solutions to the problems of my ideal clients. Kathy, do you think that answered the question for our audience, listener?
That's great, Kerry. I think so, yeah.
Great, okay. So what's my next question? We're burning through these pretty quickly here.
We're doing well. Okay, so the other one that came up from one of the viewers was in a business and getting to a place in the business now where she feels that she really needs some additional support, some help, some coaching, but just not really sure she can afford it. So what would you suggest for her?
Thanks. This whole question of can't afford, I mean, that's a whole other episode. And in fact, I did interview an expert on money issues and money challenges. And I do think that we all do need to take a look at what is our relationship with money. How does that affect our decisions? Because too often, if we operate from a scarcity mentality, we actually don't spend money when we actually should be spending money. And that could be everything from marketing to working on ourselves. See, the challenge with the person that you have referenced here is that in terms of support, maybe coaching, that some advice to be able to move them forward. They've identified that they need some additional knowledge, that where they are, they won't be able to grow their business to a certain level or get through some of the challenges they have. So the good news is they've already identified that. But really the next step is, what do they do with that? And if they come from a scarcity mentality, what happens is they'll spend money on the bills, the things that have to be paid, yet they won't spend money on those things that could move their business forward. So really that's in the role of what I would call coaching, mentoring, consulting, that whole world, training. That is what people need to understand, that in order to move ourselves forward, in order to move ourselves from where we are to a different place, something has to change. And if it would happen on its own, it would have already happened. I'm going to say that again. In order for us to move from where we are to where we want to go, if you had the skills and ability, the resources, the knowledge to do it, you would have already done it right now. Now, you can go out and do a lot of DIY learning, absolutely, really important. You know, there's lots of good books out there. You can search a lot on the internet. The challenge is that growth that way, changing your perspective that way, takes a much longer than if you're in some kind of an environment that's challenging you. I'm sure, Kathy, you would agree with me on that piece. It does, you know, that when you've got people around you that are challenging your notions, and you've got that perspective shift that can happen, you can move much faster, because we do fall in love with our own ideas. We do fall in love with our own perspectives. And so we need that other insight in it. Plus, I don't know about you, but often I read something or hear something, or I hear from my coaches, and I think, I've never heard that before. Well, of course I have, but just at that particular moment in time, it resonated with me. So you can move much faster from where you are to where you want to go with support. So what can that look like? Well, there are peer group coaching organizations or people who get together for that, and that can serve an excellent purpose. One of the challenges with that, though, is that everyone there is there for their own coaching technically, and you don't have anyone there who has no other agenda. In other words, if you have a coach or someone who's facilitating that, who's not also a participant in it, then there's not an agenda that's there. And I think that is that can prove to be a real challenge in peer groups. The other thing, so not having a facilitator is a really clear challenge. The second thing is that they tend sometimes to fizzle out after a while. The people's enthusiasm, you know, it can start to wane a little bit. A few people aren't able to show up. People's businesses shift and change because people often don't have any what I call skin in the game. You know, they're not paying anything out of their pocket, even if it's a nominal amount. The challenge is that just to keep that momentum going over time, there's been a lot of studies on it, and it's really challenging to do. Plus, if you have people kind of that are all at kind of the same level, how are you going to move to that next level? You know, again, in order to move forward, you've got to change some thinking. So you have to have somebody who's got the skill and the experience to be able to take you from where you are to where you want to go. So having said that, you know, peer group coaching masterminds can have a place with those limitations on it. It's never going to be the same as if you have skin in the game or you have somebody that you've invested with. Ideally, of course, one-on-one coaching is ideal for everyone because then it's custom designed for you. And I want to draw a differentiation here in that there are a lot of coaching programs out there that are what I call curriculum based. So if you're new in a particular industry, sometimes there are coaching programs that will walk you through how to set up your whatever practice or business that you're in, and they're going to walk you through that. And sort of the ins and outs of the practical pieces around that particular business. And those are great. I think those are perfect for people more in what I call the startup phase in their business. And they can usually be quite cost effective, so that can be a great way to go. However, at a certain point in your business, curriculum-based programs miss the mark in terms of being custom designed specifically for you, because each and every business has its own unique challenges and different phases where they are, from startup into maintenance mode, exit strategy. You know, where are you in that? What are the dynamics of your particular business that maybe need to be looked at? And that can only happen in a one-on-one relationship. And that's where you're going to have some skin in the game. You're going to have to pay someone to work with you over that period of time. And it's not a short fix. Where you are in business has occurred because of the length of time you've been in business. So you need to be willing to invest the money and the time, both of those two resources, in order to move yourself forward. Now, change will happen much faster than if you have someone than if you're left doing it yourself. Like I mentioned, you know, it's like going to the gym. I know that if I go to the gym and I have some, even other people around in the gym, I'm more likely to work out harder than if I am by myself. And I'm even more likely to work out even harder if I actually have a personal trainer who's there. And I know, Kathy, you would certainly relate to that, that having somebody who will push you through that extra thing that you're just thinking, I'm going to quit, you know, I'm done. They push you to that next level. So that's exactly what happens in the coaching environment. As I always say, my foot is firmly planted on your behind, you know, just kind of pushing you forward all the time. So another option is some kind of a group coaching program where you actually have someone who's trained at the particular business strategy that you want to learn or understands business strategy. So a coach like myself, for an example, with a kind of experience, and they will often put together a small group coaching program, and I have one of those. And that small group coaching is 6 people. We spend 90 minutes twice a month where we deal with, everyone has an opportunity to be what's called the hot seat, where that particular issue topic comes up. And really, it's less about the mastermind idea from other people, but it's more about the direct coaching from a trained facilitator coach like myself. The benefit, there's a number of benefits. The benefit to other people in the group is that particular issue may not have been what they wanted to bring to the table this particular session. However, they're learning and developing business acumen, because most of this audience I know have started business without any business experience. So this is going to teach them how to be able to run a successful business. What do they have to know? So they're going to start gathering those components from the other people that are there. So they're going to learn from other people's questions. They're going to actually learn from their own direct questions and coaching that they're going to get. There's also that peer group responsibility piece, that you have people that you've committed to doing things, and you have someone who you hold in high regard, that coach, that you want to show up and you want to play a bigger game. That's one of the huge values of coaching, is the fact that we can usually let ourselves off the hook, and maybe some girlfriends if we're getting together to try and support each other. But the fact of the matter, it shifts quite dramatically when it's actually a business decision that you're actually investing in it. So that happens in the small group coaching environment as well. And of course, you're spending your time and your resources. However, you're spending less resources because it's a small group coaching environment. There's a lot of safety that's in it. Of course, the coach, like I do, will set it up that, what's said, of course, everyone has to sign mutual non-disclosures. So it's a very safe environment to be able to do that. But you do get that insight in that coaching at a fraction of the cost that you would of working with someone who's experienced in the business like I am, working them with directly one-on-one. So Kathy, that's, those are some of the steps people can take in order to get support, and they have to really look at what's going to work best for them. And I would say that if you're in any one of those those options and you're feeling a little stagnant, it may be time to sort of change things up a little bit. It may be time to look at what could be another option for you that could really have you play a higher game. I guarantee you, anybody who's successful has been in a mentoring coaching relationship, because again, left to our own devices, it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, and we don't move forward on those things that we need somebody firmly pushing us forward. So Kathy, do you think that answered the question?
I think it was great, Kerry. Yeah, some really good insight there.
Great, good. Okay, last question for me today. Is there one more?
Yeah, there is. And I think, I think part of it's probably been answered with the last question, but the question that really came up was, when in business you get to a place in your business where all of a sudden you realize you need to make a shift, maybe you need to scale your business, or whether you need to take a bit of a detour to make things work out better for you. What sorts of questions can a person ask themselves to flush out which direction and what they should be doing next?
Great question. Well, there's lots of things. I mean, I think first of all, we need to look at what our, what our current reality is in our business, and that is taking off the rose-colored glasses. That's also moving our feelings out of it. Feelings are not an accurate judge of reality, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of people asking me about that one, because they think that they are, but in fact, feelings aren't an accurate judge of reality. They can be manipulated all the time. So maybe we'll deal with that in a particular episode or another episode. But how you're feeling in your business is not a reason to make changes. It's good to maybe analyze what maybe is causing those feelings. And sometimes it can just be frustration. It can be things not moving forward. It can be, failed marketing strategies, whatever it might happen to be. So that's your particular motivation. I'm going to say be careful of throwing out the baby with the bathwater just because of that. So first off, figure out, is this based on feelings, or is this based on actually some research you've done, or you've taken a look at your business, you've looked at the numbers, and I don't mean numbers just you're not making enough money, but you've looked at what you have done, All of those kinds of things. So let's assume that this isn't based on feelings and you actually have a good sense of where your business is. You've done your research, and now you're looking to say, do I scale my business? Do I bring on an employee? Do I hire a virtual assistant? Do I bring on business partners? Whatever it might happen to be. And you really want to look again, what's that motivation for doing that? And then you want to look at, what do you want to achieve out of it? What's your intended result by doing that? So for the person who's going to hire a virtual assistant, for an example, it may be to free up time so they can actually go out and do more high value work. So doing the stuff that you could have having a virtual assistant do some of that lower paying work is a really good strategy. But that's based on a solid look at where are you spending your time. And if you're being bogged down on lower value items, then that's a really good reason to hire a virtual assistant. Now, of course, it raises the whole question of how you're going to train them and what processes you have in place, but you need to do. You obviously need to look at all of that. So any direction you're going to take in your business, know your motivation, and be open to the process, and still work in your business today exactly as if this is what it was going to be. You're going to move forward. You have a choice each and every day in our business to be excited about what we're doing or not be excited about what we're doing. So it's about a shift in your perspective and your attitude. And the good news is we can give ourselves our own attitude adjustment. We don't have to go anywhere else to do that. So because what happens is, and I've seen this far too often, people will actually jump into doing something different out of desperation, frustration, again, fed up and fear. And they don't make the right decision because they do it for the wrong reasons. So you really want to look at what that motivation is. And then, so while still working in your business, giving it your all with what you've got in place, be open to what I would call conversation for possibilities. And that conversation can be with a virtual assistant. It could be about maybe hiring somebody. It could be maybe business partners, doing your research, being open to not being attached to that as an outcome, but to be moving down that direction. Because when we're attached to it, then we actually avoid seeing some evidence. We avoid asking some of the tough questions. We maybe don't put the right contracts in place, whatever might happen to be. In order to scale our business, we actually have to go and borrow money quite often to do that. So how are you going to go about doing that? Being open to that debt to grow is a good thing, is first of all, that's a money mindset. But then in addition to that, talk to other people. What did they do? How did they fund their business? Did they do it just through cash flow? Or did they find other ways for funding? How could they do that? So be open to all those kinds of conversations for possibilities, I call it, and really try and not be attached to the outcome for it. Because when we're attached to the outcome, then we do avoid certain things. It's kind of like, if you remember going on a date with somebody that you really liked and you'd kind of had this big impression about what they were going to be like, you kind of annoyed maybe the fact that they had really bad, table manners or something like that, because you really liked them. But the fact of the matter, long term, that might have been a huge annoyance or may have been a deal breaker. So that's the other piece, is you want to make sure that whatever information you get going down that road, what are those non-negotiables? What are those deal breakers? What are the criteria you're going to make that decision based on? So if it's about partners, what are their behavioral styles? Because I absolutely will tell you that most partnerships will fall apart because of the fact that you have differing behavioral styles and people ignored some of those things that were going to be challenges down the road. Better that you know them up front, you set in place what has to be in place so that you've got the right communication style, or better yet, you don't get into business in the first place. So scaling your business, hiring virtual assistants, delegating, lots of questions to be asking yourself. So really the bottom line to this is, be present in your business as it is today and give it every single bit, because you're either giving it positive energy or negative energy. And if you want it to become self-fulfilling, you know where you want to keep your focus. So focus on that positive energy. You're giving it everything right now and being open to whatever might else come down the road without the attachment to it. So whether it's, again, there's a lot of moving parts in this question, but really not being attached to it, being open to the process, doing your research, doing your due diligence, and then at the end of the day, the decision actually should become self-evident. There shouldn't ever be a position where you're still struggling with it. If you're still struggling with it, there's still more research that you have to do. So the question at the end of it, or the decision at the end of the day, should become self-evident. It's either a yes moving forward with this strategy, or no, it's not, with all the research that you'll have done. Wow, boy, we're right at time here. Kathy, how did that answer? How do you feel I answered that one? That was a complex question.
It was, and I think it was great. I think this whole episode was fantastic, Kerry. Lots of super good information for people, including myself. So much appreciated.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much. So everyone, just a reminder, you can go onto my website and download my book, How to Get Out of Overwhelm and Accelerate Your Business Now. And so this is a great, easy read. Go and download it. Plus 55 episodes, soon to be 56 episodes on there for you to be able to watch. Please do comment when you're there. Share them with your friends. Tell people about it, because this is all designed for you to be able to improve your business, improve your bottom line. Thank you so much, Kathy, for facilitating those questions today and being my VIP panelist. And for anyone that wants to find out more about Kathy's tours and whatnot, you can go to Kathy. Where can they go to?
Sorry about that. nichewomenstours.ca or nichetravel.ca.
Excellent. Good. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Have an inspired week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.